Chad Spradlin, technical trainer here at Lincoln Electric Cutting Systems. Today we're going to talk about the installation process that you go through for the plate marker. Today we're also going to install it directly onto a 4400 machine, which will be the same process going through installing on a 4800. So today we received our box of our shipment. I went ahead and I opened it up to make sure that everything was there, which I definitely would suggest to you. We have the air hose along with the air distribution block. We have the mounting brackets along with the hardware for those mounting brackets. Let's set those aside. Then we can see the system overview documentation, which is inside of this. This is going to go through all of the items that are also included in there. And this is also the installation guide for if you do have a TMX table or a bolt together table. Then we have the plate marker itself that has all of the attachments, the air hose and the power cable attached to it. I'm going to go ahead and set this box over to the side. And I'm going to remove the bubble wrap so we can expose the plate marker itself. So once we have all of the bubble wraps removed, we see the entire assembly for the product here. Now what I am going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to disconnect and I'm going to unscrew from here because we need access to both of these items. Both of these items on the 44-4800 line are already pre-assembled on the machine itself. So then at that time we are not going to need these pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and take my Allen wrench and I'm going to go ahead and remove this bolt right here that is holding these control mechanisms. So I'll go ahead and set this thing down and I'm going to get out my 5/32. So now what we're going to do is we're going to remove this retaining strap and we're going to go ahead and loosen it up to where we can just remove it totally. And we're just going to set it aside because we want to make sure that we use that for the other attachments. So we're going to disconnect the power by using the clip. We'll undo that, and that is the cable for the two solenoids here. And then we are going to use our fingers to press on the locking collar, and then we can just pull this blue tube completely out. Then we will be left with the assembly itself along with the stylus. And I'm going to go ahead and set this down. And I'm going to remove this clip and then take the bolt. Now I can remove both the air line and the wiring and put it aside, as that is not going to be used for this assembly. So the next thing we're going to do is that we are going to remove this L bracket that's on the back of this assembly. With these brackets that come with the machine itself, we have a straight up bracket that this thing is going to mount to directly. So I'm going to use that same 9/64 Allen wrench and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove these bolts from the back of the bracket and discard those hardware. So then that plate, along with those pieces of hardware, will get set aside. And then we are left with the 9/16 hexes, along with those mounting bolts to the front. So I'm going to go ahead and remove these also. Now with all of that hardware removed, this is what we are left with. As you can see, that back plate along with all of the hardware has all been removed, and we do not have the air supply going into the main supply here, and the power cable that is sitting right there has also been undone. So we are going to leave those items, but I will remove the bubble wrap off of the Stylus, and we will mount it into the Stylus holder. So as we can see the Stylus here, we've got the carbide tip. Then we have the dial, which adjusts the intensity of the Stylus itself. We have some laser drawn numbers on there between 1 versus 5. So then you can adjust how intense you want the oscillation of the plate marker itself against the plate. So with the installation of the Stylus, all we need to do is we're going to drop it into the collar until the dial is just a little bit above the black mounting bracket to make sure that we can spin it. Then I'm going to take my 5/64 and then I'm going to go ahead and lock down on that collar to hold the Stylus into place. Now we don't need to crank it super hard because of the compression that we have going here, but you want to go to where it's hand tight, and then you're going to give it about 1/4 of a turn because you don't want to crank it to make this thing, want to break, but you just need to have it tight enough on there to hold the Stylus into place. So now we can see that's going to be in there. Now is where we start to add the rest of these mounting brackets to the machine themselves, and we'll start with that installation over there on the machine. So here we are at the machine. Now, as you can see, I have moved the gantry from wherever position it was, and I've positioned it so I can work at it. The other thing that I did was I brought the head over to the center of the gantry because there's going to be some things that we're going to need to get to at the cable chain, which is going to be the air supply along with the power supply to turn the plate marker on and off. As we can see over to the left of the head here is where all of our assembly and brackets are going to end up in this area. We have 4 threaded holes on the inside of that bracket where we are going to be mounting our mounting bracket. So we're going to walk over and grab those. So we got these 2 mounting brackets here. And then I'm going to grab the socket head screws. There's going to be 4 of them. And then I'm going to grab my 9/64, hopefully that's what it is. And then we're going to install this onto the bracket. Now, I did this because I do it all the time, which is drop screws and other parts into the water table itself. I don't feel like fishing today, so I put down a piece of material to make sure that we can catch all those items. Plus, it makes a very good workbench. So I'm going to go ahead and put my button head or my cap screw into the first bracket. I'm going to go ahead and move and manipulate the wires up and out of the way. And I'm going to go ahead and set this in here. Line it up with that. And then we're just going to tighten it to where it no longer tightens anymore. And give it about a good 1/8 of a turn afterwards. So my first bolt is in place. Grab my second bolt. And since these parts are threaded, you don't have to worry about trying to handle or manipulate a bolt on the back end. What a pain that would be. Now we're going to do the second bracket, which we're just going to push these cables over to the side, and we're going to go ahead and just screw that one right into place. And we'll make sure that it's even with this other one. So once I get this bolt in here, we're going to tighten this one down, and then we're going to give each one a nice little turn on the inside to make sure that it's nice and tight. So come on through. Perfect. Now that is establish the brackets for the plate marker to assemble to. Now I'm going to keep the Allen wrench that we have been using, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab the plate marker assembly along with those appropriate button head screws to go ahead and mount that to the brackets that we just assembled. So I'm going to set the washer on the button head screw so we can get this thing started. Now we can see the adjustment on the plate marker itself has all of these slotted bolt holes, which means that we can assemble this and change the depth and perception on where this thing is at. Usually I'm going to have it set up a little bit on the high side, but I'm going to make sure that this cable is out of the way, and I'm going to go ahead and push these cables out of the way to make sure that we're not clamping down on them. And I'm going to go ahead and just finger tight 2 screws into this mounting bracket. So we got that one in there. I'm going to go ahead and set up the washer on one of these other screws. Then I'm going to come around and do the cross one. Once I get that finger tight, I'm going to go ahead and grab my wrench, which that seems to be a smaller diameter. So I'm going to go over to my Allen set and pick up that other wrench, which is the smaller size of that. I'm going to go ahead and let this thing sit and pull that one out because that's not going in as much as I want. If I remember right, this is a 9/64, which today it's going to make me a liar, which means that it is a 1/8. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and get this one started. Okay, right there. I'm going to go ahead and get this one started. Make sure that it goes ahead and it gets into that. Then going to grab the other washer, put it into the other screw. Screw this one into place. Grab the other washer. Now at this time I'm going to raise up the plate marker so it's going to be at the very top of the travel. And this is how I'm going to mount it. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten up these button head screws. Then I'm going to give them a little bit of a hug. And then give them a little bit of a crank down. This will complete the hardware portion of assembling the plate marker. So as we can see the loops of not only the power cable, which supplies power to the plate marker itself that's already been attached to the back of the AccuMove. And then we also have the air line itself. So we're going to see these loops, and then we're going to be able to pull these through the cable chain, and then we're going to finish the installation by pushing them underneath these 2 cross braces to make sure that it's all part of the cable chain, and then we can go ahead and add them to the connections of the power and also the air supply of the plate marker. So we pulled out the air hose, and then we pulled out the on-off for the plate marker. And as you can see, these things are labeled for the plate marker. We've got the plate marker power, which is going to be the 4-gang switch. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that in. It only plugs in one way. So once that snaps into place, we're all going to be happy. And then I'm just going to set it here because we're going to come back and put the strain relief on it. Then I have the air line itself. Now the air line has a piece of the MPT at the end of it. So all this portion needs to do is plug directly into the insert, which is going to be the main air supply to the whole entire assembly. So I'm going to take this unit and I'm going to put it around here and plop it right into the front of that MPT fitting, and I'm going to just push in and it will be tight to that. Now once these items are connected, we've got the air supply, plus we also have the power supply. I'm going to grab my strain relief, open it up a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put that and wrap it around both the air supply and the cable itself. It looks like I might want to put the air in first and then have the power underneath it so we can get a better crimp. And then I can come over here with my bolt, slip that inside of there, and we can go ahead and tighten this up in the hole that has been assigned for these products. Looks like I gotta flip it over. So I had it right the first time. So we'll put this up this way. Squeeze it a little bit. Line that up. Now the cable and air line have now been connected. I'm just going to bring some of the slack down, and then when we finish up and button up, we're going to go ahead and add a zip tie to make sure that we have a clean assembly with the air supply and the power being connected to the plate marker. As we can see, we have the back of the AccuMove right here. We also have the wire harness shelf that's right above that. Now, up on top of here is where the air supply is going to terminate. There's about a good 6 inches of hose right here that pops through the bottom of this wiring harness. Now, this guy right here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to clip these zip ties and set those into the disposal. And that is going to give us our length of hose that we need to set up for our plasma power supply. Now, we see the MPT connector right here. So then I'm going to need a little bit of light, and we're going to go ahead and hook that MPT right into the end of there. And then we can bring the main air supply and connect it to this connector here. Once that gets done being connected, we can connect this whole entire assembly. This end, this is going to go to your plasma power supply. So as you can see, we're going to tee off the plate marker based off of this, this union and plug the main supply into here. This end is going to go to the plasma power supply, and the MPT is going to plug right directly into this. So I'm going to go in here, and we're going to plug that directly in. As far as for the AccuMove power connection to the plate marker has already been established, so that's already been plugged into the back, so you don't need to worry about calling your local electrician to help you out on that. So we got the MPT connected right up. I'm going to go and grab my main power air supply. Then I can plug that directly into the back of that air supply. There we go. Obviously, we can tighten this up a little bit to make sure that that stays. And then this portion here is going to come off and go directly to the plasma. And I don't need this anymore. Like so. Now that we have the main supply hooked up to the Y, we have the power clipped on the back along with the strain relief. All of the connections have been made to the air distribution block and to the plasma power supply. Now's the time to get this thing aligned properly for the VMD to operate this the way that you want it to. On top of the plate marker is a regulator. This is what's controlling the down pressure of the plate marker itself. So this is controlling the ram in the back to push the plate marker down to touch the material. We want to make sure there are some green indicators on the top of that. We want to make sure that the air supply is going to be in that range. So I'm going to pull this regulator down to lock it. Then I'm going to go ahead and tighten it up, and we can see the needle go, and we want it to be in between the two green dots right here, and then we're going to lock that into place. Now we are going to generate the offset for the plasma power supply and the plate marker, so the VMD knows when we assign a tool to the plate marker that adjusts the proper offset for that. And that's going to be done in the VMD, and we're going to demonstrate that now. So the trick that we are going to go through is we are going to activate the power supply. It is going to come down. It is going to generate a hole in the material that we have here. We will then set our program 0 and then jog over the plate marker to find the inside of that hole, and we are going to set that, and that will be the offset that we will be using. So I'm going to move over the head to where it is over the material. We're also going to verify that everything moves out of the way. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do it right here. So I'm going to go to my tool library, and I'm going to activate the plasma power supply. It will then come down, touch off the material, and it will create the hole. So once that gets done doing the pierce, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set the program 0, and then I'm going to use the jog keys in the tool library, and I'm going to jog that over. And I'm going to see if I can find exactly where that needs to go. Now we can use different parts of the jog window, the incremental, and it can move in small increments to make sure that we get as accurate as possible. And it looks like that right there is probably good, but I'm going to go ahead and change it over to incremental. And I'll go ahead and move that over a couple and see if we can, oh yeah, look, we're going to move it over just a little bit more. Make sure that that whole entire needle comes in right into that hole. And I'm going to do 1, 2 of those more. That looks like it right there. So then in the software, I'm going to go ahead and press Set Offset. That will then populate the offset that is going to be set for the plate marker itself. And now all I need to do is close that window. And now the plate marker is ready to use.